Welcome to today's video. In this session, we'll focus on the second transaction module, the fence installation, proposals and transactions. In the previous video, we discussed the point of sale module, which is designed for wholesale and retail transactions. So this is when you're selling materials to the customers or contractors directly without any labor or installation services involved. So today we'll dive into the fence installation transactions, which involve creating an estimate proposal before a job becomes a contract. This process includes estimating materials and services required for the job, generating a layout and proposal for the customer, and transitioning the proposal into a contract if the customer approves the job. Let's take a closer look at how to create a new estimate proposal. There are four major activities in creating an estimate. These involve the proposal setup, the material specifications, the layout, and then your specifications and your layouts will be involved in generating your calculations and your material lists. And then finally, you have your estimate and proposal details. Let's walk through each of these. The proposal setup involves defining key project information such as the customer details, the project name, the project location if it's different from the company headquarters, and then defining the proposal type and assigning a customer. When assigning a customer to an estimate, the estimate type presents two scenarios to consider. First is a quote or direct contracting. In this scenario, the fence company works directly for the company. For example, we select Arby's here. The estimate proposal is then submitted only to this customer, and if awarded, the fence company contracts directly with that customer. The second scenario is a bid submission. In this scenario, there are one to many more parties to the transaction. Instead of hiring the fence contractor directly, in this case Arby's, the customer would accept bids from one to many general contractors or construction managers, and then they will contract directly with the selected general contractor. In turn, the general contractors will request bids from multiple subcontractors to perform certain aspects of the project. As a result, the fence company submits their bid to the general contractor or contractors that are bidding on the project, and if selected, their contract is directly with the general contractor. In this scenario, the estimator needs to identify the general contractors who are bidding on the whole project, and to do this, the estimator then selects the relevant GCs from the pick list shown here. When the estimate is complete, then Fenceify will generate a proposal for each of the selected GCs. Moving on, the next major section is the material specifications. It is here that the estimator identifies and selects the materials that will correspond to the customer requirements. It's important to note that you can assign one or multiple specifications depending on the job requirements. For instance, you might have a project that you're bidding that involves chain link in one section and wood or vinyl in another section. The specifications are determined using the estimator engine, which currently supports chain link aluminum, vinyl and wood, and then there's another category for any materials that fall outside of this. Once the material is selected, the default products that correspond with the user inputs are generated for such things as the post length and diameter, the rails, the concrete that is used. The estimator will also generate shop drawings that provide a visual rendering of the specifications and can be used to document and ensure that what was quoted corresponds to the customer expectations. In a future video, I will cover the use of these estimator engines in more detail. For the purposes of this video, I am only using a simple chain link example. The third major section are the layouts, which can be created in two ways. You have the visual layout, which allows the estimator to draw the fence runs as lines and to scale to their customer's layout. The posts are then identified as each run's endpoints, and they can be identified as ends, corners, gates, or tie-ins. You'll want to adjust the scale to fit your needs. As for larger projects, you'll want to set a larger scale to accommodate more footage on the page. The visual layout also enables the estimator to select their gates. Whereas with the manual layout, shown here, the individual fence runs, corners, and ends need to be identified individually. And then for the manual layout, you'll also need to go to the Gates tab to manually enter your gates, as shown here. After finalizing the specification, layout, and gates, the user will then select the Calculate button, and the system will calculate and generate the material list. This will include the quantities of such items as your post, your rails, your gates, your fittings and hardware, and any other items that have been identified that correspond with the specification and layout. When the estimator is run, the system generates two tabs that correspond with the estimator for the material list and the job cost list. The material list will just be a generated list of the materials, which is customizable by the estimator. The estimator has the ability to select any individual item, to change the quantity or price, to add additional products manually or non-stock items manually to the list of material. The system also generates a second tab, which is a list of all the job costs that potentially are associated with that job. So let's take a look at the job cost tab, which provides the final catch-all for each estimator, and when completed reflects all the anticipated cost and profit, as well as that section's proposed install price. But please note, as mentioned earlier, there could be multiple estimators associated with one proposal. Those estimators, each one will be combined ultimately to generate the completed proposal. Due to the complexity of this section, I'll be doing a future video to delve more deeply into all the different features and properties of this tab and this functionality. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to walk through a simple example. And as shown here, the system pulls in the material cost from the material lists and will combine them with the other job cost in the end. You have the ability to add profit to the material under the material modification. You'll see that it also is calculating your sales tax to get to your finalized material number. And then in the job cost section, we have the ability to allocate the direct cost that we expect to be involved in completing this project. And as we discussed in the services module video, there are four primary categories of job costs. There's the labor costs, there's the equipment and machinery costs, there's the subcontractor costs, and then there's the other catch-all costs. For labor, you're going to have, again, the certain activities that will be involved in setting posts, for instance, or hanging the gates. And in here you can select what the crew size that will be assigned to that task, the expected hours it will take to complete that task. And then our table here will take care of the calculations. We talked about the labor activities, but you can also add equipment as shown here. Oftentimes, instead of using hours, you'll use a fixed rate or a rate by day. And so you can customize that rate or use the rate that is pre-populated, and then identify the number of days or the fixed fee associated with that equipment rental. We also have the ability to add subcontractor costs. For instance, if we need to hire an electrician for a gate operator installation, and then we have a section for other costs or general expenses that are not that may or may not be directly associated with that particular job. So you've got items such as travel and lodging, or meals for out-of-town jobs. There might be some general overhead or other items that need to be accounted for, and that would be done here. It's also important to note for each of these sections, if there's an item that needs to be added that is not available, custom job costs, by selecting the plus button here, will pull up another dialog box which allows you to add these custom job costs to the estimate. And then at the bottom, we have the ability to add a profit margin percent, and this can be anything that we want it to be, or it could be 0. And same thing with contingencies. Then, as the ability to double check our pricing, we see here below a price per linear foot, and this just provides a double check on our pricing, and if something is off from our expectation, then we could dig into some of our cost and labor to see where there might be where the source of that discrepancy is. So when all the labor and other direct costs have been added and combined with the material cost, we have our proposal price, and as long as we're not adding another estimator, we can move on to the fifth and final section of the proposal, which is the actual proposal that is submitted and the work order that is generated but also modifiable by the estimator. If we used the estimator to generate our material list, the work order tab will convert the information from the estimator layout into the work order tab here. And you'll have 4 quadrants for chain link, wood, aluminum, and vinyl. But this is perfectly customizable by the estimator. In fact, it's recommended that the estimator then can add more details that would be useful to the installers when they're out on the job. So here we might add such things as the location of the house, location of trees or telephone poles, or any other obstructions that may be important for our installation crews to be aware of. And then we have tools to add text and arrows and other shapes to clarify, and an undo feature to revise any recent changes that have been made. And then moving on to the proposal tab, we'll see that the system has generated for us a scope of work for each estimator that is completed. It'll generate a list of a descriptive list of the work that is to be done. This can be customized by the estimator. There's a terms and conditions section, which also could be customized. And of course, the proposed price, which is going to come from either one estimator or multiple estimators combined, is also customizable. So the estimator doesn't necessarily have to go with what the estimator has shown. If they want to mark it up or mark it down, that can be done here. And then when all the verbiage is as the estimator wants, then it's time to print the proposal and the layout to go to the customer. So this completes our high-level overview of the estimate proposal module. We discussed the proposal setup, where we identify the customer and project-specific information. We discussed the material specifications and the generation of material lists. We discussed the layout and how we could use the visual layout versus a manual layout when generating the material lists. We then went into the job cost section, where we allocate our expected costs for the job and identify other direct costs that need to be included. And then we looked at the work order that is generated and how that can be customized to not only go to the customer to document our understanding of the project. It also can be used by the fence contractor's install team when they go out to perform the job. And then finally, we discussed the proposal that is generated but can be customized by the estimator before everything gets submitted to the customer. So that completes today's video. There's a lot more detail to go into that was not easy to do in one video, so I'm going to break it out and show some of these sections individually and do videos in more detail for them. But I want to thank you for watching, and stay tuned for future sessions.